West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
Two recent legal briefs that Donald Trump filed are not only utterly without merit, in my view, let's call a spade, they are treasonous and traitorous documents. Let me explain. First, the 14th Amendment, Section 3 disqualification case before the Colorado Supreme Court, where the Colorado Supreme Court ultimately ruled that Donald Trump would be disqualified from the Colorado ballot. Donald Trump argued that he did not take an oath to support the United States Constitution. Let me repeat that. Donald Trump's argument to the Colorado Supreme Court was that he did not take an oath to support the United States Constitution. Then, in the more recent absolute presidential immunity issues and briefings now before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, this after federal judge Tanya Chutkan denied Donald Trump's motion to dismiss the federal criminal indictment against him in Washington, D.C. on absolute presidential immunity grounds. Donald Trump argued for king-like power, basically says that he's immune from any crimes he committed while he was in office, and he states that his conduct in trying to overthrow the results of the 2020 election, and specifically his conduct relating to the January 6th insurrection, constitutes official acts. He's saying that was the job that he had to do as a United States president. These arguments are frivolous, they're dangerous, and they're treasonous and traitorous. Let's go one by one, and as you're spending time with your family and you're maybe introducing them to the Midas Touch Network, we show the facts here, we show the receipts, we show the documents here on the Midas Touch Network. So first, I want to show you Donald Trump's brief that he filed with the Colorado Supreme Court. And for those of you saying, no, we couldn't argue that he didn't take an oath to support the United States Constitution, here is the summary of argument. This is Trump's legal brief. He says, the framers excluded the office of president from Section 3 purposefully. Section 3 does not apply because the presidency is not an office, quote, under the United States. The president is not an officer of the United States. And President Trump, this is what they're saying in Trump's brief, Trump did not take an oath to, quote, support the Constitution of the United States. And Donald Trump and his lawyers say, oh, protect and defend the Constitution is somehow different than to support the Constitution of the United States. Trump argues he never said he was going to support the Constitution of the United States. I mean, how black and white can it be? It's right here on the paperwork, Donald Trump saying he did not take an oath to support the United States Constitution. Fortunately, the Colorado Supreme Court rejected that argument. Fortunately, the Colorado Supreme Court said the office of the presidency is an office when you take the oath of office, you are an officer. Also, it should be noted that in other legal actions, including for a brief moment in Colorado before Donald Trump then withdrew it, he's tried to move cases to federal court on federal officer grounds. He tried to do it in the New York proceedings by the Manhattan District Attorney, and ultimately that got rejected. He tried to say he's an officer there. Same thing in Colorado, although he voluntarily withdrew it. And by the way, when Mark Meadows recently stated that he was an officer, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals said, nope, you are a former federal officer, Mark Meadows. You were once an officer when you were Donald Trump's chief of staff. However, you were acting outside the color of your official responsibilities by engaging in attempts to overthrow the results of the election. Now let's take a look at what Donald Trump is arguing before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And here's a post that Donald Trump made. And again, this is treasonous and traitorous stuff that he is saying. I don't want to mince my words right here. Here's what Donald Trump writes. I wasn't campaigning. He's referring to the insurrection. I wasn't campaigning. The election was over. I was doing my duty as president to expose and further investigate a rigged and stolen election. It was my obligation to do so, and the proof found is voluminous and irrefutable. Therefore, among other reasons, of course I am entitled to immunity. Additionally, he puts all in caps, I did nothing wrong, stop the witch hunt now. Someone who takes zero accountability, zero blame, is so self-unaware of the situation. And here Donald Trump is saying that his activities in trying to overthrow the results of the 2020 election constitutes official responsibilities of the presidency. You might want to read a little document called the United States Constitution. You may want to understand federalism here. You may want to understand that elections are in the hands of states, and these are states' rights issues for people who try to talk about states' rights, or however they want to gaslight us, these MAGA Republicans, to try to seize power. There is no role within the office of presidency to do anything at all that you did. Go read Article 2 of the United States Constitution. Well, you know who did read Article 2 of the United States Constitution recently? The conservative right-wing 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, because when they analyzed both Mark Meadows and Jeff Clark, former DOJ official Jeff Clark, who tried to overthrow the results of the 2020 election with Trump, and Mark Meadows, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals said this is not the territory of the presidency at all. This is not what the executive branch engages in. This type of conduct involves electioning and campaigning, and especially when you then start to interfere with free and fair elections, which is the province of states to conduct their own secure elections, and you're trying to interfere with that, that is not within the power of the executive branch. Donald Trump is also making that statement because someone probably told him what the ruling in the Blassingame v. Trump case was. That case was decided in early December, where the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals said that Trump's conduct relating to the insurrection in January 6th, that his attempt to overthrow the results of the election as it relates to civil liability, civil cases, monetary damages, falls outside the outer perimeter of executive power, of executive authority, and therefore former presidents are not entitled to absolute presidential immunity on civil cases for conduct that involves electioning and campaigning and election interference that Donald Trump was engaged in. Federal Judge Tanya Chutkan, the district court judge who ultimately reports to her boss is the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Chutkan said, yes, that's okay, Blassingame. She didn't go into the Blassingame decision because it hadn't really been released at the time her opinion went up, but she said, you know what? Former presidents are not entitled to absolute presidential immunity for criminal conduct, period. Criminal conduct are not official acts ever. They will always fall outside the outer perimeter, the text, the history of our Constitution, the structure of it. It's a reaction to authoritarians and despots and kings who have limitless power, who would get away with everything that they wanted to do. So clearly our Constitution has some guardrails and doesn't allow absolute presidential immunity from criminal cases. But then again, here's Donald Trump's argument, and here's what he says in the argument. And here's his summary of the argument. He says that his power he's entitled to absolute presidential immunity for his official acts. The indictment alleges, he goes, only official acts, so it must be dismissed. So Donald Trump looks at the indictment brought by special counsel Jack Smith and says that the indictment by special counsel Jack Smith, which goes through all of the things that Donald Trump did to overthrow the results of the 2020 election, threatening and intimidating canvassers, and his conduct relating to the January 6th insurrection, and Donald Trump engaging in a conspiracy to throw away the actual results and change the results so that Trump can win. Donald Trump says all of those, everything that Jack Smith alleges in the criminal indictment, are official acts. Again, that's why I want to call a spade here and say how dangerous this is. Donald Trump is saying, accept that everything that Jack Smith says in there is true. And if you accept everything Jack Smith says is true, I am still entitled to absolute presidential immunity, because all of those things are things that presidents are supposed to do. No, they are not. The history, text, and structure of the Constitution does not support coups. It does not support people trying to overthrow the results of free and fair elections. This is what Donald Trump is putting in his briefs. This is what his lawyers are arguing. Trump has absolute immunity from prosecution for his official acts. The indictment alleges only official acts, so it must be dismissed. There it is on page 5. And then he goes through another 30 pages of analysis about why he believes that to be the case, but then goes and says that he could do anything. There is no limitation on the authority. Kill someone? Sure. Have a coup? Sure. Destroy the Supreme Court? Sure. Remove judges? Sure. This right here is a framework for authoritarianism. It's just right there. It's the text. It is what it is.
It is Tuesday, the 26th of December of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, our little Yorkie, is the door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. So go ahead, a little bit of paprika in the chowder is a good thing. Yeah, okay. Well, it is Boxing Day, and it's the beginning of Kwanzaa, and it just means that the holiday season continues, and we like it that way. Yes, we do. So, how was your holiday weekend? Well, we had fun here. It was relatively quiet. Today is the day that I take my mom in for the evaluation on her heart to see if she is strong enough to have a stent put into her carotid. The big main vessel in her neck. So it's got quite a blockage, and but she did have a heart attack last March, an infarction, the same thing. But we got to see, and I got to tell you, I'm hoping that's the case, that she is able to have the surgery, even though it has some risks, as they all do, and especially at her age and relative fragility. I mean, come on, she's mid-80s. The percentage of blockage, which is around 90%, that doesn't sound good, does it? No, and we don't want her to have a stroke. So this is what we're trying to avoid. I just don't know. At this point, if they say, well, her heart is not up to the task, can they address it with medicine? Can we stave off a potential stroke that way? I just don't know. The intimation was that it's better to have the surgery. Now, I mentioned this last week, the hope is that this procedure is a lot less invasive than another hip surgery. She was warded off having another hip surgery because of how deep she'd have to go under, and she probably wouldn't be able to survive a big hip surgery. It might be too much on her heart. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that my speculation is correct, that she won't have to be down as deep in the anesthetic and maybe not use as much anesthetic. She's not on the table as long, presumably, than what it takes for a hip replacement. So this is the day that we find out what that is, and the pulmonary doctors said that they would be moving rather quickly on getting her scheduled for the procedure. So I guess we'll find out and fill you in more tomorrow on what those results might be. So just a little bit of a personal. It does impact everything, doesn't it? It does. Everybody's personal life does. Okay, what do we have in store for you? We're going to not go on too much of a rant today. It's I think Trump said everybody can go to hell. Merry Christmas. Okay. Whereas Dr. Jill and Joe spoke with U.S. troops overseas on Christmas. Mm-hmm. But Joe is the doddering old fool. Is he? Boy, you don't really hear much about how booming the economy is, at least with Joe's name attached. If there was something bad, they would be trumpeting that all to high heaven. But, I don't know. And his polling. Now his polling shows him up like almost in double digits in some places in battleground states. You don't, oh no. That's not what the media, at least on the corporate level, wants to report. They have their marching orders, don't they? They do. All right, what do we have in store for you here as we begin on this Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays in the Bistro Cafe part, because we also have the chef's table. Now, for those of you who have been to, fine dining restaurants, usually you do the amuse-bouche in the beginning. But we're Americans, okay? And here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, we could do the little amuse-bouche, kind of savory, not so much sweet, at the end. And, sort of like how people in America have the salads first instead of at the end. We do the amuse-bouche at the end. Okay, what do we have in store for you as we begin here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? At the top, Trump's latest legal filings make the claim he never took an oath, and that means that he's immune from all of his crimes. Okay. Yeah, because if he didn't take an oath to uphold the Constitution, then he has no duty to uphold the Constitution. He's immune from crimes. Oh, my God. Or for crimes. Nice. Let's see what the MAGA SCOTUS says about that. Yeah. It'll be the enabling acts. You know it. Doesn't sound good. On the rest of the menu, speaking of something that doesn't sound good, or maybe it does, Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton promised retribution for votes they didn't like, and they have a list. And they checked it twice. They did. A Fulton County judge ruled against a media company that sued the Georgia city of Sandy Springs for delivering one-line police reports in response to public records requests. Judge says, yeah, they're following the letter of the law, are they? Very few letters of the law, apparently. And an audit finds low compliance by the Seattle police with a law requiring youth to have access to lawyers. They like the law part, the cops. They just don't like taking orders. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Belarus says Russia has completed its nuclear weapons shipments to the country, raising concerns in the region, and well, it should. Oh, and here's a nice little follow-up. North Korea appears to be looking to make more bomb fuels at its main nuclear facility. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly, for doing so, and everything else as well. If you would look across the page from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll then notice the link to our Patreon page. And of course, we would be unable to do any of this without you, and your generosity over all these many, many, many years has allowed us to fulfill our civic duty, and that is being the powerhouse of resistance against, well, the worldwide Nazi takeover of all that's well and good. And we will not allow it, and we thank you for your generosity in allowing us to do so. If you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a month, you'll be joining like-minded individuals who, well, want to punch the Nazis, and this is one way to do it, at least giving you the fortitude and a little bit of info to arm yourself. So there you go. And thank you for your generosity once again. And thank you to those of you in advance who may consider to do so, hopefully in the near future. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, Facebook, etc., you can do so mostly at Netroots Radio. Just get Netroots Radio on there and it'll come up. I should mention that really all of us take care of the Facebook page, but Tom takes care of the social media platforms out there, and we thank Tom for what he does there and also everything else he does here at Netroots Radio. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, do so at Justice Putnam, and I suggest that you do because I post the show notes and links diary 10 minutes before showtime. And if you follow my social media feeds, because I'm on all of them now, since you know what the apartheid Blood Emerald Air has done to that platform, I'm there anyway. But you can find me mostly at Justice Putnam everywhere. And if you followed my social media feeds, then you would have quick access to those show notes and links that are posted on Daily Co's. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and you can actually follow the show on Facebook at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. So go over on Facebook and follow it. And most importantly, you can pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, etc., etc., etc. Just not on Stitcher. Can't find it. No podcast there. Not anymore. Okay, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Texas Tribune by Carla Ostadio and Patrick Svitek. The Texas primary season promises more drama than usual as Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton seek revenge against dozens of fellow Republicans in the State House. Paxton is working to defeat the House Republicans who voted to impeach him in May on abusive office charges. The Senate acquitted him after a trial in September, which was a sham acquittal. We all saw that in real time. Abbott, meanwhile, wants to unseat the House Republicans who thwarted his year-long crusade for school vouchers, which would allow parents to use taxpayer dollars to help pay private school costs. Both of them have their work cut out for them, though. 60 House Republicans voted to impeach Paxton, while Abbott is focused on a narrower group of 21 who voted last month to strip a voucher proposal out of a broad education bill, because apparently even some Republicans thought, we're letting rich people pay their private school tuition with taxes? They don't like taxes. Now, some of the Republicans in their crosshairs are retiring, but most are running for re-election. The filing deadline was December 11th. Among those seeking another term, 15 House Republicans are on the wrong side of both Paxton and Abbott because they voted both to impeach Paxton and to block Abbott's voucher program. Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A Fulton County judge has ruled against a media company that sued the Georgia city of Sandy Springs for delivering what it argued were incomplete police reports in response to public records requests. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Kimberly M. Esmond Adams ruled on Friday that the Appin Media Group, which publishes community newspapers in Georgia, did not prove Sandy Springs violated the state's Open Records Act. The company claims city officials gave journalists police reports that contained limited details about what occurred during arrests and investigations, thus violating state law. Adams cited legal precedents that permitted police departments to withhold large portions of the records that are part of a pending investigation or prosecution. However, Adams also wrote that Appin may be correct in its assertion that defendants' practice violates the spirit of the Open Records Act. In response to requests for arrest reports and other documents, Sandy Spring officials provided journalists with a one-line narrative that gives little to no detail about the incident, the company said in its complaint. Appin said it sought more information to allow journalists to report on police activities and how tax dollars are spent. Richard T. Griffiths, a media ethicist for the Georgia First Amendment Foundation, said the ruling could have a chilling effect on police transparency in Georgia. The ruling does not serve any purpose other than to shield these reports from the public, he said, and encourages police departments to play games with the Open Records Act. Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A new audit shows the Seattle Police Department has a low rate of compliance with a law requiring it to provide young people with access to a lawyer before they are interviewed. The City Office of Inspector General's audit found officers complied with the law 4% of the time, based on an examination of 50 cases in 2021 and 22. And that was reported by the Seattle Times. Under a 2020 city law, after a young person is read their Miranda rights, police are supposed to connect them with a lawyer before questioning them or searching their vehicle, though there is an exception if an officer believes someone's life is at risk. The state legislature in 2021 passed a similar law under which police are supposed to call the State Office of Public Defense after an arrest and let the young person talk to a lawyer before questioning. Studies suggest that juveniles often do not fully comprehend the potential consequences of their actions, including waiving their rights after receiving Miranda warnings. The Office of Inspector General wrote, "It is important that juveniles have access to an attorney to assist them in making decisions that impact their constitutional rights and have serious consequences in the criminal justice system." The audit found most officers seemed unaware of the requirements and of how to connect youth with lawyers. Why is that? Training. Audit recommendations mostly involved updating training and guidance, and police leadership agreed with them. Oh, they're going to get right on it, huh? In a letter responding to the audit, Brian Maxey, the department's chief operating officer, what, are they private? They got a chief operating officer, said it's not always obvious whether someone is younger than 18, and he wrote the law only applies when someone is in custody and being questioned, not when officers are asking preliminary questions to determine if a crime has occurred. Still, he said, the department agreed with the findings that in some instances there are clear gaps in officers' understanding of the laws and inconsistencies in practice. Well, I think the legal term for that is no shit, Sherlock. Okay, we have to get to our break, and when we get back from that break, and I should warn you, I got to take care of some things for my dear mom. So I'll hurry on back, but when we do get back, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, A Flight of Pure Imagination. Those looking for the big reveal or plot twist in Wonka are not going to find it. As far as prequels go, this one plays it safe and predictable, but that's okay for family holiday fare. Inspired by, but not beholden to the Roald Dahl classic, Wonka imagines the titular hero in his early days as a poor but plucky young man determined to make it in the London candy business. However, he quickly learns there are several obstacles to his dreams. To begin with, he finds himself staying at an inn/laundry business run by an unscrupulous businesswoman, played by a fantastic Olivia Colman, and unable to leave until he pays off his debt. Secondly, it turns out breaking into the candy business is going to be even harder than he thought, due to the corrupt local chocolate cartel that makes it clear there's not enough room in town for another candy maker. Undeterred, Wonka bonds with a fellow indentured servant at the laundry, Noodle, and the two seek to earn their freedom and make Willie's dreams a reality. In the lead, Timothée Chalamet manages to come across as charming, vulnerable, and believable. Not an easy feat given the nature of the role. In lesser hands, it might come off as ridiculous, but Chalamet pulls it off. Likewise, in a small but memorable role as an Oompa Loompa, Hugh Grant delivers by wisely not playing the role as cute, but rather as a world-weary traveler who's been trying in vain to have Wonka pay him back for chocolate inadvertently stolen earlier. The end result is funny, with Grant's scenes being arguably the best in the film. Overall, Wonka is a bit like the candy Willie makes, sweet and sugary, but fine as an occasional treat. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, this is Your Health Quickly, a Scientific American podcast series.
We bring you the latest vital health news, discoveries that affect your body and your mind.
And we break down the medical research to help you stay healthy. I'm Tanya Lewis.
And I'm Josh Fishman.
We're Scientific American's senior health editors.
On today's show, we're doing a special holiday edition on drinking. The holidays are filled with alcoholic delights, but too much of a good thing can lead to regret. We are here to share some science-based tips for imbibing more safely.
Cheers!
Chun! That's what all cool kids in Korea are doing now. Chun. That is the sound of a lovely Josh Cabernet, one of my go-to drinks. Not just because it's my name. It's actually really good. Not a product endorsement.
That was a clink of my glass of gin and tonic, which is one of my go-to drinks.
What is your gin of choice?
It's a British gin. I didn't want to open a whole bottle of wine for myself, so I decided to make myself a gin and tonic.
People think of gin and tonics as summer drinks, but they're pretty good December-ish, too.
Yeah, good year-round.
I enjoy raising a glass for the holidays. For me, much as I enjoy these things, lately I've noticed that the levels in my bottles are going down faster than they used to. And honestly, that's a bit unsettling. Actually, I'm trying to cut back. I am planning this coming year to have a dry January.
That's a good idea. I've actually been cutting back myself, often substituting a non-alcoholic beer or mocktail for a glass of wine with dinner. But I still enjoy a real drink from time to time, especially on special occasions like holiday dinners or parties.
Seems perfectly reasonable. We all need to celebrate sometimes. We just want to do that safely.
Exactly. And the holidays can really be a risky time for drinking.
Some research has shown that people drink as much as twice as much as their usual amount between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
That's our colleague Megan Bartels, a news reporter at Scientific American. She's writing a story about the science behind holiday drinking and how to avoid the worst effects. One question I had for Megan was, do some kinds of alcohol get you drunker than others?
Afraid not. Not really beyond, more alcohol in the drink means you'll get drunker. It's not nearly as simple as tequila gets me drunk so fast or something like that. It's really all about the amount of alcohol that you consume and how quickly, and then other factors like how much water you've had, how much food you've had that sort of affect how quickly your body processes it.
So the amount of alcohol in an old-fashioned isn't more likely to get me drunk than the equivalent amount of alcohol in beer or wine?
Right. It's really more about the amount and speed you drink. But there are some other factors that could make you drunk more quickly.
There's a little bit of evidence that maybe carbonation speeds up alcohol absorption and sugar slows it down. But that evidence is really weak.
But is there something about the environment where you're drinking that could make you want to indulge more? Like if you're at an office holiday party, for example?
Yeah, that's a great point. And Megan did mention that the context in which you drink could affect your likelihood of being drunk. Or hammered, smashed, 3 sheets to the wind.
I have seen people 3 sheets to the wind, and at that point, they're usually leaning over the rail, pretty uncomfortable.
Maybe if you only have champagne at New Year's, it feels like a special thing to you and you don't drink it as quickly, and then it won't make you very drunk. Or, for example, you're drinking a really sweet cocktail, the sweetness masks the taste of alcohol, you might drink it really fast and get really drunk.
Well, speaking from personal experience, champagne definitely gets me tipsy a lot faster than other drinks. Maybe because it tastes so light and bubbly and you almost forget you're drinking alcohol.
Personally, I get no kick from champagne, song reference there, but what about the consequences of drinking too much? Do we know what causes hangovers?
A headache is definitely a big component of a hangover, and that's really tied with dehydration when it comes to alcohol. Alcohol really dries you out fast. That's a big piece of it, but the exact components, the exact mechanisms, that's all pretty hazy, actually.
Apparently, there's a small percentage of the population, about 10%, that never gets headaches from drinking.
You're kidding. That must be nice.
Right? But in general, there's not a ton of research on hangovers, in part because they're just not as big of a problem for society as intoxication itself is. And it's not like it's easy to get funding and recruit people for a study where you make them drink to the point that they'll get a hangover.
I don't think I would sign up for that study. And the other thing is when someone comes into an emergency room or something after drinking, you can measure their blood alcohol content. But when someone's hungover, you can ask them how much they drank, but you don't know if that's accurate. So it's trickier methodologically.
Given that hangovers are a reality, is there any way to cure them? I've heard all sorts of strange things like hair of the dog, whatever that is.
Basically, drinking more alcohol.
Or eating greasy food. That's another one I've heard. Do any of these help?
Unfortunately, hangover cures don't really work, so your best bet is to try to prevent them from happening in the first place.
The best things to do are to eat beforehand and then to stay hydrated throughout the night. So some people will talk about having an alcoholic drink and then having a glass of water and alternating back and forth, and that can reduce your odds of a hangover for sure.
Eating before drinking is definitely the best, but even after drinking, I often find myself craving salty, greasy food. That may be because it replenishes electrolytes, since alcohol makes you pee those out. And as for hair of the dog, well...
I mean, I guess maybe in the short run it'll help a little bit, because the problem with a hangover is that it's basically withdrawal from alcohol. So if you're drinking, then you're sort of reversing that withdrawal, but you're just postponing the inevitable. You're still going to feel bad. It'll just be later.
So no quick fixes then?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, so drinking too much alcohol will give you a hangover. But also, even moderate drinking can be bad for you, as our Science of Health columnist Lydia Denworth has written.
That's right. There's been a growing recognition in recent years that moderate drinking, often defined as 2 drinks a day for men and 1 drink a day for women, can increase your risk of serious health problems down the road.
Now there's a much higher appreciation for just how dangerous alcohol is, how much it increases your risk of cancers, how much it can take off your life expectancy. And so now doctors and scientists are really shifting to this idea of like each drink can have this negative impact, even if you're not experiencing a hangover, even if you're not experiencing intoxication.
And on that cheery note, folks, enjoy the holidays.
I mean, it is a downer, much like alcohol itself. But drinking is just one of many risks people take every day. So we all have to find our own comfort level around how much risk is acceptable.
Personally, I'm planning to enjoy a little bit of holiday spirit this year, but just a little.
Well, glad you're going to give moderation a shot.
Your Health Quickly is produced by Talika Bose, Jeff Delvicio, Kelso Harper, Corinne Leong, and by us. It's edited by Ella Fetter and Alexa Lim. Our music is composed by Dominic Smith.
Our show is part of Scientific American's podcast, Science Quickly. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, give us a rating or a review. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, you can email us at yourhealthquickly@siam.com. That's yourhealthquickly@sciam.com. For Your Health Quickly, I'm Tanya Lewis.
And I'm Josh Fishman.
See you in dry January.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Citing over 50 violations of the Wisconsin Constitution, the newly configured Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled December 22nd that the state's legislative maps must be replaced before the 2024 election. The state constitution stipulates that a voting district must be contiguous, not fragmented. In its 4-3 ruling, the court found that at least 50 of 99 state assembly districts and at least 20 of 33 state senate districts violated this mandate. Portions of some districts were detached by one or more separate districts. The court directed the state legislature to draw new constitutional maps and said it would hire consultants to draw the maps if the legislature did not comply. Wisconsin's voting districts are considered by national redistricting experts as some of the most partisan gerrymandered in the country, largely the work of former Governor Scott Walker, later rewarded with a post to the National Republican Redistricting Trust. The extreme gerrymandering resulted in a 64-35 majority in the Wisconsin Assembly and a 22-11 majority in the Senate, despite an evenly divided liberal and conservative electorate. New maps are not likely to change the majority in the Assembly or Senate due to the rural geography of much of the state. It is likely, however, to mitigate the threat of an artificial supermajority created by 2 decades of partisan map manipulation. Read the decision at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal. You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. As states, counties, and municipalities prepare for elections in November and next year's presidential race, reports have surfaced of short-term poll worker shortages in Iowa, Indiana, Kentucky, Texas, and several other states. The election system in most precincts around the U.S. relies on older volunteers and stipend workers who have flexibility of time to help out. Many experienced poll workers stepped back during the pandemic, citing health concerns, and extraordinarily low unemployment rates makes it harder to recruit short-term workers. Fear is also a factor. In an April 2023 survey by the Brennan Center for Justice, 51% of local election officials said they were somewhat concerned or very concerned about threats, harassment, or intimidation. 21% of local election officials who started after 2020 said they are very or somewhat unlikely to serve in the 2024 cycle. To counteract this loss, a coalition of veterans organizations created Vet the Vote to mobilize retired veterans to assist as poll workers. Another group of media companies, democracy groups, and advocacy organizations launched Power the Polls in 2020, recruiting 275,000 poll workers for the 2022 midterms. If you can serve your community as a poll worker, contact your local election office or visit AmericanDemocracyMinute.org to find out more. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1914. That was the day garment workers gathered in New York City to found the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America. It was a revolt against the conservative United Garment Workers Union. Garment workers across the country had complaints against the United Garment Workers Union. The Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America leaders held a simmering resentment over a bad deal made after the 1910 Chicago strike in the men's clothing industry. Then, in 1914, the UGW higher-ups refused to seat New York delegates at the Nashville Convention. Chicago delegates protested and both walked out of the conference. They had it with the dominance of white skilled craftsmen in a union whose members were largely immigrant women. Early on, the ACWA emphasized industrial organizing and social unionism. With Sidney Hillman as their first president, the union engaged in many strikes, winning the 44-hour work week in 1919. It provided such benefits to its members as cooperative housing, child daycare, unemployment insurance, and collectively bargained health and life insurance plans. It also established the Amalgamated Bank. By the late 1920s, the union boasted a membership of over 100,000. Having never joined the AFL, it quickly signed up with the new CIO and coordinated its work with the Textile Workers Union of America in 1937. The ACWA continued to organize successfully. In 1963, these unions embarked on what became a 17-year organizing drive and boycott at J.P. Stevens, popularized in the movie Norma Ray. They led other successful campaigns in the 70s, including at Fair Clothing, and championed investigations into brown lung disease. The union has since undergone several mergers and splits, and is now known as Workers United.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 42 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the upper 40s to low 50s. Overcast most of the day. We have mist and light rain falling at the moment. Winds are light and variable, though we are under a wind advisory, an active wind advisory at that for the region, but our little protected area may not get the brunt of it, but we will see. Cloudy skies early tonight, then off and on rain showers overnight, bringing with it about a quarter inch of rain. Lows in the low 40s. Winds will be light and variable. And then cloudy with periods of rain tomorrow with highs in the upper 40s, low 50s. And it looks like we're going to get another quarter inch of rain tomorrow. And we'll see how that goes. Pollen is rated as none here in the little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 38 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at level 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.15 inches. Visibility is less than 1 mile, and relative humidity is at 98%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 46 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 52 degrees and cloudy. Rome is 58 and partly cloudy. Bagram is 41 and clear. Kiev is 46 and cloudy. Hong Kong is 61 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 43 degrees and fair. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 66 and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 51 degrees, mostly cloudy, though they are under foggy conditions, and they also have quite a bit of rain falling on the city, as well as a high surf advisory. Do not turn your back on the ocean. Chicago, Illinois is 41 degrees and cloudy, and New York, New York is 48 degrees Fahrenheit with heavy mist. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The president of Belarus said yesterday, Monday, that Russia has completed its shipment of tactical nuclear weapons to his country, an initiative that raised strong concerns in neighboring Poland and elsewhere in the region. Lukashenko said at a meeting of a Moscow-led economic bloc in St. Petersburg that the shipments were completed in October, but he did not give details of how many weapons were sent or where they have been deployed. Tactical nuclear weapons, which are intended for use on the battlefield, have a short range and a low yield compared with much more powerful warheads fitted to long-range missiles. Russia said it would maintain control over those it sends to Belarus. Lukashenko has said that hosting Russian nuclear weapons in his country is meant to deter aggression by Poland, a NATO member. Poland is offering neighboring Ukraine military, humanitarian, and political backing in its struggle against Russia's invasion and is taking part in international sanctions against Russia and Belarus. Russian troops based in Belarus invaded Ukraine from the north in the war's opening days, but Belarusian forces are not known to have participated.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Won Jin Kim of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. North Korea appears to have started operating a light water reactor at its main nuclear complex in a possible attempt to establish a new facility to produce bomb fuels, the UN Atomic Agency and outside experts said. If correct, the assessment would show that North Korea has taken a step to implement Kim Jong-un's repeated vows to build more nuclear weapons in response to what he described as intensifying U.S.-led military threats. The International Atomic Energy Agency had observed increased levels of activity at and near the light water reactor in Yongbyon nuclear complex, and since mid-October, a strong water outflow from its cooling system. Also, the Director General Rafael Grossi said the observations were consistent with the commissioning of a light water reactor, or an LWR. The LWR, like any nuclear reactor, can produce plutonium in its irradiated fuel, which can be separated during reprocessing. So this is a cause for concern, he said. I repeat that the further development of North Korea's nuclear program, including the construction and operation of the LWR, is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions and is deeply regrettable. The IAEA has not had access to Yongbyon or other locations in North Korea since the country kicked out the agency's inspectors in 2009. The IAEA has said it uses satellite imagery and open source information to monitor developments in North Korea's nuclear program. Observers say light water reactors are best suited for electricity generation, but North Korea could adapt one at Yongbyon to produce plutonium for weapons. The Yongbyon complex is not used for producing civilian energy, so outsiders suspect The reported light water reactor operation is related to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Construction of the light water reactor began more than a decade ago. It is known to have a bigger capacity than the 5-megawatt reactor, meaning it could produce more bomb fuel. Plutonium is better suited for miniaturized nuclear weapons. Some experts say North Korea has been working to build warheads small enough to be placed on short-range missiles targeting South Korea. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte coeur. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.